Songwriting, I don't actually know how I get inspired because I never thought of myself as a writer. In Cado Bell, we had Alistair, who'd been to school with Stuart. He was our lyricist. Stuart and Colin wrote most of the melodies for the things, and the rest of us would interpret them in whatever way we thought was the right thing to do, cut things down, change bits of lyrics, stuff like that. But it didn't really feel that you were writing something, it just felt that it was part of what you did. And then I wrote a song, and it was the only one our publisher ever managed to do a cover for all the great Cado Bell songs. This song, Ain't No Doubt, was the only song Pete Barnes ever got a cover for, and I couldn't really work that out because it wasn't as intricate and as fantastic as these other songs. And I didn't really do much in the way of writing and thinking about writing until Jürgen actually said to me, think it'd be good if you wrote some songs, and I thought, yeah, it would actually. And then I started working with Stuart on... He and I, we kind of do bits and pieces of each other. I mainly do lyrics and melody lines and stuff like that, but it kind of overlaps sometimes, and started working on stuff like that. And then Gavin, the bass player from Cado Bell, is a fantastic lyricist, and I started working on some stuff with him, with Stuart. And then the last of years, with Every Time We Touch, for instance, that was an idea from a meeting in the Mayflower Hotel in New York. And I'd gone out on tour with Mike, and I was away for like 3 months, and my boyfriend came to meet me, and he was on tour, but it kind of overlapped that he could come out to the States. So he arrived at the hotel, I arrived at the hotel, but we didn't know where we were in the hotel, and there were all sorts of lifts and things, and eventually when we did meet, we got in the lift, and there was that thing of touching ring, and you get the spark off the carpet. And that's where the initial idea for Every Time We Touch came from. And I don't actually sit down and go, I'm going to write a song. It's just sometimes things happen, and you just think, oh, and something comes into your head, and you just write it. So I'm not one of these people that sit down. I know lots of people who can sit, like Charlie Dorr is a fantastic writer, and I've worked with her in the past. Kit Hain I've worked with too, and they literally can, you come up with a melody line and they'll sit down and just go do 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 do, and they've written a fantastic lyric, and you just go, how did you do that like that? With me, it kind of goes round my head for a bit, and I'll maybe get a hook line or an idea, this should be about this, because the melody says to me, this should be what this is about. And that's kind of how I'll be driving. Actually, I've written most of the things in my car, to be honest, and I'll be driving around and I'll just have this thing going round my head, and I'll, think, oh, that's it, and do it like that. Really, it's just I take it. Some songs come very, very fast. Like there's a song called Whisper a couple of albums back, which just came into my head, and that was it. I just thought, this is a lyric. Where's the tune? Okay, put that together. But usually I have to think about stuff. So I get the idea of what it'll be about. There's the melody there. I'll work across that and put my own melody on top of the melody, and then do a lyric that suits. Family Man, for instance, was a collaborative thing with the band. Mike decided he wanted us to be a band for that album, so it was going to be the Mike Oldfield Band, and so we were all going to collaborate in various things. So they put together the track, and then everybody wrote bits of verses, and then I sung it all at the end. We kind of weeded out what verse was going to be used, what idea was going to be used, and then put it all together, and that became the song that I sung. With Foreign Affair, it was much the same. Foreign Affair, collaborative for the band. The track was put together, and then we all put in this part, that part, this verse, that verse. Oh, that sounds beautiful, right, that's what we're going to do. So I suppose that was a little bit of a lesson in how to kind of piece things together. We'd just been touring a lot, hadn't we? I mean, that says it all, really. We'd been touring a lot, and I think a lot of temptations had been thrown in the face of the men in the band, and it was just an idea, you know, being on tour a lot. No, this isn't what we do. Tell the people back home this is not what we would do. So whether they did do that kind of thing or not, my lips are sealed, I cannot say. But that was what the song was about, really. Moonlight Shadow, there's lots of different stories about a lot of these things because recollections may vary, as the Queen was heard to say a few years ago. When you try and think back, sometimes you don't all have the same memory of what happened. My memory of what happened was, round about that time, I was staying in a little cottage that was underneath Mike's studio, which my friend Richard lived in, and I had moved from Scotland and I was looking for somewhere to stay. So Richard said, stay here for now, which I did. And what would happen was Mike would be in the studio and he'd think, right, I've got this idea. And he would just bang on the floor. And then I would go up and we'd start to record stuff. And this happened quite a few times. With Moonlight Shadow, I just remember him, because we used to work, when we worked together, we worked really intensely to the point where you almost lost your voice because you were always trying to find what it was he wanted. Because he wasn't a singer himself, but he had an idea in his head of the kind of thing he wanted it to be. This is what it seemed to me. And so what we would do is I'd start at a point and then I'd kind of try something else and move it around, and he'd say, try this, or I'd say, what about this? And eventually we would come to a thing that was the thing that worked for the song. With Moonlight Shadow, he called me up. I went up to start recording it. I think we did it over a couple of days. I can't remember exactly, but it was quite fast the way we did it. Here's the song, and I thought, oh, that's kind of like a little folk song, that's really pretty. Started to work on it, and his thing was, do it with an English accent. And I looked at him and I said, I'm a Scot. And he said, yeah, try and do that with a bit of an English accent. And so that's what I did. I sort of thought, channel your inner English person. And we did it a number of times, and then we thought, this is it, this is what the song should be. And then I kind of went away and forgot about it, and we went off on tour again, and we did other things. And I was actually amazed that the song has had so much of a life. When I started doing solo stuff, when I stopped working with Mike, it was because we finished a tour and I said to him, do you know, I've toured for 5 years solid now. I think I want to just stay at home for a while. And I don't think I want to tour anymore. And so we kind of went like that. And Moonlight Shadow had been around and around and around, and it was us. And there was a lot of stuff at the time about when we recorded it. It wasn't the norm to put sung by. Nobody had done that, and so it wasn't like it was done on purpose that I wasn't on the cover or anything. It just wasn't the thing that was done. You just did what you did, and that was it. But I think Mike got a bit of flack about, well, that's not a woman, why is it a man's name and it's a woman's voice? And I don't think that was fair, really, because it hadn't been a thing to put, this is by and this is who sings it. But after that, it became a thing that people always put who had sung it on the thing. So when I stopped working with Mike for a while, I thought, okay, I'm doing solo stuff. I'm not going to go back to the Oldfield stuff because that's not fair. That's what we did together. That was our thing, and this is a different thing. And so I used to drive promoters mad because I'd say, don't promote it as voice of, that. No, let's make it stand alone. And it drove them crazy, obviously. And then I realised I went to a Joe Jackson concert and he did Different for Girls. But it was a woman that sung the part. And I was incensed. I was like, no, that's not, it's got to be him that sings that bit. And it made me think, well, people want to hear what they want to hear, and they want to hear it in the way that they know it, and they, you know, so you don't deviate too much. And I thought, no, I will start doing those songs again, because I did sing them. Some of them I co-wrote, you know, so it's not a big deal if I sing them, you know, and people want to hear them. And so I did. And it kind of freshened it up for me, because if I'd been singing them all those years, I would just have felt like I was kind of on Mike's coattails, basically. And I didn't want to feel that. And I didn't want him to feel that either, you know, that I was having a career out of the work that we'd done together. So it kind of worked for me that when I started singing it again, I looked on it in a completely different way. It felt fresh. It was great to do it again, and the other songs too. And people want to hear them, you know, and I just think, yeah, you want to hear them. I wanted to hear Joe Jackson sing that song, but, you know, I'm going to do it. And I never, ever in my wildest dreams thought that it would last all these years, because it's a long time now. And people still come up, and the same with Every Time We Touch, though. People come up about those two songs and say things like, this was the song we played when we got married. This is the song we played when my son was born. All sorts of, you get some stories you don't want to know. You know, people will say, this, no, I don't want to hear that bit, you know, but getting married, that was quite kind of nice. That's what you played then. And both Moonlight Shadow and Every Time We Touch seem to have had that thing where they've touched people in a way that it still goes on. Even, like, there was a girl at the gig last night, she must have been about 16 or 17, you know, and she was all gothy and gorgeous looking, and I was like, oh, you're at this concert, you know. But I was kind of surprised, because I didn't think someone of her age and her kind of visual, I would have thought she'd have been more into All About Eve or, you know, some sort of different type of band. But she came and she loved the concert, and I was like, oh, great, and you like those songs, super. You know, long may it last.